The Female Solution Global Radio TV Show invites you to an invigorating conversation with our team of hosts Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Start your week with Monday Morning Mindfulness with Zelda Speaks. Tuesdays, Self-Cell Care with Jody Susan. Wednesdays, Repairing Broken Families with Naima Latif and co-host Kareem Hamid. Thursdays, Soulful Solutions with Dr. Debbie Green. And Fridays, Health and Wellbeing with Beata. Saturdays, tune in 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. First Saturday, Success Strategies with Jana. Second Saturday, Wendy Williams Esquire on relationships. Third Saturday, Move Around with Deborah. And fourth Saturday, Wisdom with Mama D. Join us Sundays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time for Soul Purpose Healing with Beata. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to the host and be a part of the solution. Grand Rising, and thank you all for joining us here on this Wednesday morning on the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. We have a special today, a men-only discussion about respect. And we want you to listen in and comment and call in 515-605-9325. We'll be joined with our American Muslim 360 family and our co-host Kareem Hamid. Listen in. And we want you to participate in this discussion as we ask men the question about what they feel about being disrespected and how they feel about society's response to them and how some incidences can trigger them to react violently. So we want you to give your point of view and share your experiences. Men, call in 515-605-9891 to speak to our host, Kareem Hamid. And our guest panelist today, we have with us Ron Chisholm.
Yeah, and we are back. I'm sorry, my phone was on mute.
And an author.
We are grateful to the three men that have agreed to have a conversation.
And we'll hear from them now.
Respect. Respect among the African American male has become very, very, very paramount. I keep my ears not only in the halls of higher learning, I keep my ear on the street also. And what you hear is a demand for respect. Man, he dissed me, man. Yeah, but you didn't have to kill him. Yeah, but he dissed me, man. Well, all right. So let us have this conversation on respect. I'll begin with Bullhead. And if you would just share, because I want to have an open mic discussion with us. What I'll do is, who wants to address the subject matter? Who wants to address this, be the first to address this subject matter? If so, we can begin right now.
This is Imam Saturday. I'm going to yield to one of the other brothers out of respect for the other brothers. Either one of those brothers can go ahead, and I'll wait.
I guess I can go ahead. This is Ron. Is it all right? Yes, please. But first, I want us to talk to one another. Let me kind of gauge this. I know myself especially, I'm very long-winded. I know that. But I want to keep the conversation as succinct and to the point as possible, and being cognizant that we're in a conversation and that we allow each other to speak and complete our thoughts without embellishment or anything. That everyone's mic is open. This is a new way of a new form here that I'm utilizing so that we talk to one another, not talk at one another. Yes, sir. Go ahead, my brother. my salam to Abdul. This is Abu Bakr Salahuddin. Remember me?
Walaikum salam. Yes, I'm here.
You remember me?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, yeah. I knew your father, when I signed by it back in 1976. So let me just go on, and I come myself out to the other brothers. If you don't mind, I would like to read something. Naima warned me and told me, not to get too worried, but I'm writing the second edition of a book, and I list 4 threats.
Excuse me, I'm hearing a lot of background noise. I know I can't control your background, but if we could, not be shuffling papers or whatever, that will allow a clear reception of what is being broadcast. I don't put everyone's mic on mute. I really don't. But if we would somewhat would quell the background noise, then I think we could hear each other speak. Yes, sir. Go ahead, my brother.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't have anything rattling here. You still hear something?
Not at this time.
All right. In this second edition of a book I'm writing, I list 4 threats to the country. And one of them has to do with the destruction of manhood in the United States. It's actually a universal problem. China, People's Republic of China, is having a really deep problem with manhood, and they're recently trying to address it over the last year. And what I believe that is lacking, and it's universal because it's also touching the white community here. We don't hear about it, but I have an example of it in my book. And that is, the issue is manhood. That's one of probably the main issue with the brothers that demand respect. I know exactly what you're talking about. I was on the bus once and stepped on a brother's shoe and he kneed me a little bit. And being that I was older, I knew how to handle him. I looked him in the eyes, but I smiled and said, "Brother, a brother wouldn't do a brother like that." He frowned up, but I fizzled that out. So I think a lot of this has to do with the lack of men around. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read a little excerpt. This is from the New York Post. This is regarding Darrell Brooks. That's the young black man who drove his SUV into a crowd of people who were celebrating Christmas in Waukegan. I'm sure everyone's heard about that. So this is from the New York Post, and it's significant to what we're talking about. And here it goes. The Post reads, this was November 25th at 7:06. Brooks was just 11 years old when he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression while growing up in the inner city of Milwaukee without a father, court records show. He was admitted to a mental hospital at 12 and attempted suicide numerous times in his early years after losing his grandmother and watching his father abuse his mom, papers say. Quote, I didn't have a father growing up, so my mom was stuck raising me and my older sister. We were on welfare for most of my childhood, Brooks wrote in a 2007 letter to a judge. My father was an alcoholic who was very abusive to my mom. My father's dad was an alcoholic, he wrote. I grew up in the inner city full of drugs and prostitution. So, and then one more, and I'm going to let you go. Now, you all are familiar with the Rittenhouse case, and he happened to have shot in self-defense. That can be argued about, I don't want to get into that. A man named Joseph Rosenbaum, Anthony Hubert, and Gage Grosskreutz, or something like that. All of them were white. Now about Rosenbaum, the same newspaper said the following. Rosenbaum is controversial because of his past. He was convicted of child molestation-related charges. Rosenbaum was in Waco, Texas, to, quote, unmarried parents and only met his father twice. The report says his mother committed forgery and was evading law enforcement for the next 7 years, so the family moved frequently between towns in Texas and Tucson, moving 3 to 4 times a year and living with relatives. His stepfather was an alcoholic who physically and mentally abused his father. And it goes on and on, but that's the main point. And I'm going to say one more thing. I'm 71. So I saw the change in black culture from pre-1960s. Then from 1960s on, everything fell down. There were two-parent families. You had the extended, if you want to call it, family of the black neighborhood. You had a bunch of mothers. If you had been acting up, as it was called, and your father was at work, anyone on the block could check you on that. That changed. There's this Fox News journalist, Tucker Carlson. He did a video on that in which he ran down a ton of statistics regarding the lack of manhood and the destruction of manhood and the attack on manhood in this country. And the demarcation point that he used was 1960, and that's exactly what I witnessed. My father was around, and just by virtue of how he carried himself with respect, I had his image. I can see. It was nothing where someone had to lecture me, and sometimes he was lecturing me and my brother about how to walk. You don't be doing that pimp walk, as they used to call it, or throwing them shoulders as the gangbang. And he was serious about that. And that made you have a sense of self-respect because you watched how he respected himself. So
thank you.
I'm going to drop that right there.
Thank you. What a valuable commentary that you have shared, and we look forward to your further input in this conversation. You are the one that has nicknamed yourself Bullhead. Am I correct?
No, that's Abdul. That's the other brother.
Okay, Abdul Kareem, you are next up, if you would, please. Everyone's mic is open. The subject is respect. Take your phone off of mute, if you would, please.
Sorry about that. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. So my name is Abdul Kareem Sr., but I know go by the name of Bullhead. Just to explain that, I've been a very bullheaded person my whole life, and I've taken short roads versus I've taken long roads versus the short road that some people had who had succeeded in life. I was born at the Sadiq Mosque in 1970, and was born a Ahmadi Muslim, first generation, and I'm very proud of that for my family. But when we talk about respect, I can say that my father has been the most respectful person I've ever met in my life. And I've tried to live by his example, but I also had another road. So when it comes to respect, one thing I didn't learn was how to respect women in a different way in order to get that respect back. So I learned a lot of things about respecting people, but my downfall was women. And a lot of men these days That is their downfall. Instead of being men, they want to entertain women. So in my new book, Men Protect Your Sperm, I talk about how men need to be more responsible for themselves and develop as a man and become a husband before they become a father. So that's one of the things that is a passion of mine now. After doing 29 years, 8 months and 4 days in the United States Navy, going around the world, seeing great things, but a lot of horrific things at the same time. I know what it's like to be disrespected, but also show people respect even sometimes when they don't deserve it. And I yield.
All right, thank you for your comment here. Up next is Imam Sakir Bia. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Good morning to all the brothers as well as the sisters in this order. So, real brief, I've been listening to the brothers, and I concur. I'm a lot younger than both of the brothers. I'm only 47. And a little bit of my backdrop. I won't go into the file, but I'll just tell you that one of the things that impacted my life in a dramatic and a traumatic way is that I was a youth offender. So by the time my 18th birthday, I was in a level 5 institution around what they would consider some of society's worst, right? And so having come from a gang culture and drug-infested culture on my maternal and paternal side of my family, so drug abuse at a very young age. I saw alcoholism at a very young age. And the whole wide, witnessing these behaviors and these actions, no one ever offered me a counter to that. So the miseducation, as with most African American men, minority men, is that the miseducation starts in the home, and either from lack of fatherhood or uninformed fathers, or having mothers that unfortunately, because of dire necessity, they entertain a variety of men, and these men are in and out of the home influencing the children, and they themselves have been miseducated, right? So the children are seeing this myriad of what it means to be a man, and not only does it affect the men, it affects the young girls also, because they're witnessing this behavior, and they're getting the impression that it's okay to have multiple men in and out of the house, and the men wear it as a badge of honor. The young boys look at it like, man, the more he has, the higher his status is in the neighborhood, right? And then even in that miseducation, there were a set of rules. One, you don't trick off, meaning you don't take care of a woman. You're not even encouraged to take care of a woman or provide for her needs or show her dignity. Actually, it was the opposite. You don't give them nothing. You don't give them nothing. You don't treat them too wrongly, because then they'll think that they're better than you. We don't open doors. We're not doing any of that, and not even understanding that was actually opposite of what we should have been doing. And so I grew up with all of this misinformation, and unfortunately, because of those poor examples of misinformation and lack of guidance, it landed me in incarceration. And it wasn't until my incarceration that I actually, it's weird, because I know people have a lot of negatives to say about brothers who have experienced that experience. But when I tell you it saved my life and it changed my life, because I had an opportunity to see people who are more dignified in that, and I'm talking about Muslim men, African American Muslim men who are my mentors, my brothers, and my friends, and my teachers, that they actually taught me, and help me deprogram from all of the miseducation, all of the misrepresentation of what manhood is, all of the hyper masculinity, coming in, not knowing how to resolve conflict without violence, not looking at each other sideways because, you're from a different neighborhood than I am, And one of the things I noticed when I first got there, and it was pointed out to me, I'll yield with this. It was pointed out to me, we were in an anger management environment. It's a little Caucasian white lady, and she said, she had everybody come in one at a time, right? And we sit down. And she asked the question. She said, "How do you feel?" And when I thought about how I was feeling, I was very uneasy being around my own people, and that's because of all of the previous trauma. Having been shot at people, and been warred in these streets and these gang wars and these drug wars. So I was very uncomfortable around my own people, and that was the first sickness that I had to work on within myself, is being comfortable in my own skin and being comfortable around people that look just like me. And so, again, just the history of that misinformation came from a very young age. It was reinforced by the neighborhood. It was reinforced by my peers. And then going into an environment that was abnormal, I actually was able to find some normalcy in terms of what it is to be a true human. And not having had anyone to model that for me in my young life. So, praise be to Allah for Al-Islam and the men and the women that represent Al-Islam, because it was through that example that my life was changed, and that I can, begin to become a useful instrument of service, for my people and perhaps for others. So I'll yield with that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I want to be a part of this conversation also. Speaking to the youth of today, the young men of today, there is, you can lose your life on a perception of disrespect. Mm-hmm. Whether you intend disrespect or not, on just the even a look, how someone perceives that you are looking at them, you can lose your life. They use terminology, yeah, man. He was looking at me all crazy, man. I'm speaking into the reality of what is happening right now. And it didn't begin now. Oh no. We look back on pre-1960 as if that was kind of a paradise. No, it wasn't. Especially for women. I have witnessed men come home and they demand this and they demand that, and if it's not given, then he will use his brute force. If his wife raises her voice to you, do you not raise your voice to me in my house? Well, that comes from an environment that we did not construct ourselves. We are products of an abnormal way of thinking. An abnormal way of thinking that was modeled for us as a community. We had nothing else to look at as a model. I'm quite sure, I hope that we are aware of that there is an iconic photograph of a African American slave that had ran off, and his shirt is pulled down to his waist, and his back is photographed. Are we aware of that picture? There's deep scars on his back. Have any of you seen that picture?
Yeah, I believe I've seen that picture.
Yeah. That picture, it was reproduced many times. And it was distributed, especially in the North, because sometimes they played down the brutality of what was happening in the South. That picture was distributed. Postcards, you name it. And I read something about that brother's life. He would run away. They caught him several times and whipped him with a bullwhip. After that last beating, and they drug him back to his slave quarters, the slaves give an account. They say he went crazy. He lost his mind and attempted to murder his wife. Now, think about that now. He's just been under total subjugation of another person, another people, another system. But when he's back in the slave quarters, he attempts to murder his wife. In other words, I have no respect outside. I have no control over nothing outside. But in this home, I'm the authority, and I'm going to act it out. Because he's only acting out the experiences that he himself had endured. That demand for respect. I mean, an overzealous demand for respect.
So, Brother Man, you mentioned something that but I'll let you finish your point. But you mentioned something that I wanted to touch on, but I'll let you finish your point about the deficit that we have experienced in that regard. But go ahead, dear brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I'll be very succinct. I know me, I'm very long-winded, and I got to check that. But we are the product of an abnormal environment that molded and shaped us and gave us an erroneous perception of what respect is and what it is to be a man. We have to forgive ourselves. We didn't do this to ourselves. This is something that was done to us. And although we may not have any authority out of the community in which we live, or inside of that community, we demand respect inordinately. So this heavy push on you will respect me. I heard a female professor give a definition of respect, and it was her own. She said, "Look, when the terminology respect is used, she said read means to repeat. And the spect comes from spectacle. They used to call glasses spectacles. That means what you see. So that respect, you need to take a second look at me. You know what I'm saying? I'm more than what you see. Praise be to God. I'm more than what you see. I have worth. So that respect it can be a plus, but if it's misunderstood and taken out of context, we see the results of it. I'll stop right there. Let's talk about it.
Yes, sir. One of the things, this is Brother Zion speak. One of the things that I've noticed in my experience is, again, not having any positive modeling and demonstration And that's not everybody. Some of us come from two-parent homes. Some of us had grandparents that were present, and so everyone just suffered from that, right? And we're speaking about a good majority of us, and we're talking about then and now, right? And so when you look at the dynamic of imbalances in nature, anytime you have more of one thing and the least of another, it's going to offset your natural balances. And so, we always hear, it takes two parents to raise a healthy child. I'm an advocate of that, because there are certain qualities that a child, male and female, will get from the father that they can't obtain from the mother, and vice versa. And so that masculine and estrogen dynamics of who we are, male and female, needs to be balanced out. And what's happened today with this whole effeminate approach to what masculinity is, you have young boys that's putting dye in their hair and putting multiple earrings in their ears, and they're getting their eyebrows lined, and they're getting designs cut into their eyebrows, and even getting their eyebrows arched, and they're wearing the tight clothing, the feminine jeans. All of this plays into that, because the men who first have never really been taught how to be men, then they're now identifying or seeing themselves on an equal social equal status as women. But when they walk to the door, these younger people now, when they walk to the door, they don't even try to open the door for the sisters. They look for they want the sisters to open the door for them. So it's a lot of imbalance in how that masculinity has been represented. And it's even being under more attack now, because you have this whole effeminate, counter-masculine, counter-heterosexual agenda that's taking place, and that's just adding a whole other layer of confusion and distortion in the psyche of what men should be. So I'll deal with that.
Yes, sir. Come on, y'all. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in on something about pre-1960s. We've never had a paradise. That's never existed. It wasn't a paradise pre-60s. It's not a paradise now. It wasn't a paradise 10,000 years ago. But when I talked about pre-1960s, I'm talking about relative to how things have changed, and they've changed in a huge way. With regard to respect, I'll give an example of what I mean about the change. I was 9 years old, and my father, I was a latchkey kid. My mother and father broke up when I was 5. So he would leave money for me or my brother if we wanted to go to the theater, do whatever. So I got the money, and I decided to go to the Regal Theater, which is on 47th, and it was called South Park Theater, now called King Bud. And I was walking, and I got to South Park, and then I was going down 51st Street, I turned up to go to the theater, and when I got near the church that I attended at the school, Corpus Christi, I saw about 6 guys, and they were in a gang. Gangs back then were different. They wore uniforms, so you could identify who they were, and they had a little emblem on the back. I can't remember the name of the gang. So I slowed down because I just wanted to bother them, hitting me on my shoulder and asking me for a nickel, which was pretty much all they did back then. It wasn't about cutting your throat, shooting you down, or anything crazy like that, or whooping your ass for no reason. Anyway, as we approached the church, where I went to church, there was a nun, and the nun was sweeping the steps of the church. When the gang members who were ahead of me got to where the nun was, one of them started bad-mouthing the
calling it all out of name and get who knows why, abusing the non-verbal. The head of the game slapped the guy. The other game members beat him to the ground, kicked him, stomped him, and then the head of the game picked him back up and apologized to the sister. Now, I don't think the gang members knew anything about the doctrine of Catholicism or that gang head. But what he did know was that was a centralized structure and that she should be respected. That guy knew that she symbolized something higher. So this is what I'm saying, that's been lost. There were always games, there were always what we call bad boys. Y'all give another example of respect. Two dudes getting ready to start, getting ready to box, getting ready to box, getting ready to fight. There's a crowd around. One of the guys pulls out a knife, and everybody else says, "Oh man, you're a pussy, you're a chump, put the knife down," and let's fist fight. They were fist fight, and when it was over, they were shaking hands. They were trying to kill each other. So I had seen in my 7 years on the earth a huge change between how it was in 60. I mean, you had that, and like the brothers were saying about the dude that came home, he beat his wife. Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. And I think that gave also into a feeling of lack of security. You look at especially in this society, at least up to the society, at least you want to say up to now, or whatever. Well, the African American male, let's say the wife goes to work.
Excuse me, I'm hearing an echo. Is your phone on speaker, or is there another receptor in the area you're in?
Let me see here. How do I get it off speaker? It is on speaker. I'm trying to think how to get back to where that is. You still hearing it?
Okay, I don't hear the echo now. If you have removed yourself from speaker, I'm not hearing it now.
Yeah, so what was I saying? I ain't forgot what I was saying. Don't get older than 50. You can't remember nothing. Anyway, I was just
I'm blowing you with that.
I just have to go with this. About that. For instance, you saw my age, brothers and hosts. A dude, he comes in at 1 o'clock in the morning. This is pre-1950. This is a little history. So he knows he's coming in wrong, right? And he knows woman's jaw's going to be tight. So that was an expression. When you come in wrong, you come in strong. So you come in, you've been out with some other woman. You come in at 1 or 2. He's standing there ready. He opens the door. She opens her mouth and he says, Where my food, woman? And might even beat her and all of this form of disrespect. Yeah, that was disrespect. That was all of that was going on. But one of the things that I do is rely on my personal experience. Maybe my neighborhood was different, but there's a brother named Robert Woodson, and I have a link in my book in his video. His experience was exactly as mine over in Philadelphia, South Philadelphia. Stable neighborhood, black businesses, not all, but partly because of the stability of the family. But one thing I'd like to ask the younger brothers who had more experience with games, I had experience with games in a way because I knew the big R, the respect. If I was one to disciple territory, I thumped my chest and say, gee dang, that's what they want to respect. But I'd like to yield to brothers who were directly involved in games, because what I've come to know over the years, what I've come to believe, because I used to watch they used to have these animal wildlife programs. And animals, they are very territorial. And if you get in their territory, they don't feel secure. So I'm wondering, could the brother draw
a parallel between that sense of lack of security. You kind of subconsciously or consciously know you're down in society. You're second or third or no class citizen. And here's somebody, the territory that you have, which is your personal space, now they're staring at you. Would you say that there's some merit in that in what I think that I've viewed over the decades?
Before I answer that, Sahir, I want to check with Naima and see if we can go to public service announcements at this time, station identification and public service announcements at this time. And if you could answer that query of our brother once we come back, we would be most appreciative of that. Okay. I want to work in conjunction with Naima. Naima, can you hear me?
Yes, time for break.
Okay, fine. All right. So,
and we'll be right back after this quick break, so stay with us.
Oh man, God sent the monthly sun bill today. This sunlight is really expensive, especially during this season. I'll probably have to work overtime to pay it.
Well, you better pay it on time. We don't want the sun to go out and we're sitting up here all day in the dark. Wouldn't it be terrible if God charged us for sunlight? Well, thank God, the light and heat from the sun is free. So why are we paying such high bills for the energy we use in our homes? Because we don't know how to use solar energy, the free energy from the sun. You can convert your regular home to a solar energy home and save tremendously on your electric bill. Take a look at your electric bill. Wouldn't you like to reduce or possibly even eliminate that cost altogether? Let one of our solar consultants show you how. Call today, 312-849-3456, and schedule a free consultation. That's 312-849-3456.
The Female Solution Global Radio TV Show invites you to an invigorating conversation with our team of hosts Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Start your week with Monday Morning Mindfulness with Zelda Speaks. Tuesdays, Self-Cell Care with Jody Susan. Wednesdays, Repairing Broken Families with Naima Latif and co-host Kareem Hamid. Thursdays, Soulful Solutions with Dr. Debbie Green. And Fridays, Health and Wellbeing with Beata. Saturdays, tune in 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. First Saturday, Success Strategies with Jana. Second Saturday, Wendy Williams Esquire on relationships. Third Saturday, Move Around with Deborah. And fourth Saturday, Wisdom with Mama D. Join us Sundays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time for Soul Purpose Healing with Beata. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to the host and be a part of the solution.
Executive producer of the Female Solution Global Radio TV Show. We are a part of the online network of Associated Internet Radio hosts. On Air. On Air empowers you with transformative news and interactive radio TV shows. This is such a wonderful time to be alive and see our human family coming together as one community as a result of that powerful tool, the Internet. We can now talk directly to each other all over the world. There's no need for conflict or misunderstanding. There's no need for violence to solve our differences. We can talk to each other face to face until we reach an agreement. On Air offers a fantastic global guide to communicators from all over the world who are using their internet platforms to inspire us to strive to be our best selves in order to become the kind, compassionate, loving people we were all born to be. Once we do that, we'll see planet Earth transform transformed into a place of peace. Subscribe to the recommended YouTube channels, Facebook pages, and podcasts created by these Voices of Enlightenment. On Air provides daily news briefs and a weekly magazine to keep you abreast of events and opportunities. On Air news affiliates in television, radio, and print share information, insight, and interviews with notable personalities. Go to OnAirEverywhere.com for a daily dose of uplifting news. We're on air everywhere, online all the time.
And we are back. You are listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show on this men-only discussion on respect. Men, call in 515-605-9891 if you want to join this discussion hosted by our regular co-host, Kareem Hamid. What is it about being disrespected that can move a man to violence? And are we over hypersensitive about it because of a history of disrespect? How do we fix it in our relationships where some men have learned disrespect of women, and even when it's part of the culture? Let's listen.
And we are back. Praise be to Almighty God. We are grateful for everyone that have joined us here on the Female Solution. We are having a conversation among men, and the subject is respect. Imam Sahir Abeya, a question was directed towards you. If you would respond now, that we would greatly appreciate that, my brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you for the question, Akian. So a little bit, real brief, if I can try to put this in a box and tighten it up. So the idea of gang, that has been around since the beginning of creation. And I say that because in our nature, we are communal creatures. We want to be with people. We want to be around people. And more importantly, we want to be with people that are just like us or have our shared interests. So the concept of gang is really more so associated with being in a pack. And you look at it from a natural standpoint, you know, us being mammals, that we are pack creatures. We commune together. We break bread together. We cohabitate together. We nurse our young, you know, alive. We don't have birth cells or reptiles, etc. So this is the foundation of nature that we are encouraged to be together from a natural standpoint. And then you take that and you just look at all the different periods of history, right? You've seen what they call clans or cliques or gangs or communities or factions. All of these are based in the same principle of people with like interests, right, being together to accomplish a common objective. So using that as a foundation, that we springboard all the way up until modern time. So you in the neighborhood, not a whole lot of money, and then your friends become your peers, like the people that you're around on a consistent basis. This is who you socialize with and associate yourself with. And so you develop common interests. That common interest can be, well, we're going to hustle and sell drugs together, or we're going to make sure that no other guys come from other neighborhoods and get on our girls, or come in our neighborhood and do whatever, right? That common interest of protecting where we live at, it didn't get distorted until individuals started inheriting this particular practice, and they didn't know that there was principles behind the practice. For instance, in the GDs, they have an actual code of ethics, a manual, so to speak, that you have to follow. And if you would explain to the listening audience what GD stands for. Gangster Disciples. A gang that originated out of Chicago, Illinois. Gangster Disciples, and they're all over. And I know for a fact that in the United States and possibly beyond, that's probably one of the oldest established. But they consider themselves an organization and not a gang because they have rules and structure and hierarchy. It's more of an organized approach to doing the very thing that we're talking about. And so in that establishment, right, just using them as an example, not glorifying lifestyle, but just using them as an example, that if you break rank, there are already predetermined sanctions for you breaking rank. Meaning going outside of the structure, going outside of the hierarchy, getting approval to do certain things. If you violate that, then you yourself can become violated, and to whatever degree that's determined by that particular sanction. I don't know. I won't get into the inner workings because I've never participated in that organization. I was a part of another different group, but I knew people that were from that circle, and so. It was, and from observation, that was probably one of the most established in order. And I'm not saying that there are others that are not. I'm just using that as only as an example. And so, just like when you think about, and I'm trying to get to your point. So when you think about what was happening prior to Imam Muhammad coming into leadership, you had brothers that was in the NOI. They had a common interest, common goal, common identity. They wore the black suits, bow ties, and they wore the pomade, right? So you knew that those were Nation of Islam Muslims. Not just Muslims, but Nation of Islam Muslims specifically, because they identified themselves as such. So, but with that came a certain set of responsibilities. There was an identification. There was a hierarchy, rank and file. And you operated within the parameters of what that organization required that you do to be a part of that organization. And then we moved into more of a free space. We lost some of our organizational affluence because too much freedom is not freedom at all. And you lose that organizational benefit of knowing who does what's to happen next, et cetera, et cetera. In the gang culture, what happened is, just like there was an inheritance of I don't want to say power, that's a poor term, but the leadership, the inheritance of leadership from Elijah Muhammad, and Allah be pleased with him, forgive him his sins, and then Janelle Wardy Muhammad, and Allah be pleased with him also. There was a change in the paradigm. Well, what has happened with the gang culture, same thing. You had first generation or second generation established hierarchy in the gang culture. But then you have now a lot of younger guys that's coming in, and they don't have the principal foundations of those organizations. They don't know why the organization was established. Like, for example, the Crips. That's a community revitalizing in progress or restoration in progress. That's what Crip means. But you have guys now that's adopting Crip lifestyle have no idea what that means. It's just a representation of color, colors and hand signs and then everything else that comes subsequently, selling drugs and the violence that's attached to it. But it was never designed for that. It was never meant for that. And so, without purpose, undertone having purpose and meaning, then it becomes whatever. It becomes distorted. So you have a lot of misrepresentation in various organizational cultures right now. I'll just use that term because there are younger guys that's coming in. They didn't come in by way of the hierarchy, the process, the organizational structure. They took this upon themselves, and in fact, started warring with some of the pre-established organizational heads. They wanted their independence, right? And so in establishing their independence, they broke away from the principal foundations of that organization. So they don't know why have you came together? Why are you wearing this color? Why are you representing this particular set? And really how the sets came into play, and I'll get with this, how you get sets. The sets were really just established off the neighborhood that you're in, your street block. So if you were on 57, you were 57th Street Crips, or if you was whatever. So it was about people that grew up together, that knew one another, that had a common interest, and those people were friends. They knew each other. It wasn't a random person coming out of town playing in your neighborhood, and you don't know them. You're like, now, who are you? You're not from 57th Street. We live here. We know everybody that's on 57th Street. Just use that as an example. And here you have somebody else coming from a whole other state saying that they represent 57th Street, and that might even be a 57th Street in your city. But yet you're upholding something that you have no idea of what the foundational principles were for that particular organization. And so you have a lot of distortion and what they call false flagging. People who are representing something and they have no idea what they're representing, and they're carrying out activities, right? And they're doing things that has nothing to do with the organization, and it's more like rogue groups. And so with that, I'll yield.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Praise be to Allah. I like how communities are formed, beginning back with that have a common interest. We are social creatures. That's in our nature. But we have to, there's two positions, prey and predator. Prey and predator. Most of these organizations, if that's what they want to call themselves, have preyed on the citizen in the community. And I'm returning back to the subject matter of a demand for respect and the male role in respect. For me, respect as a male begins when you take responsibility for the community in which you live. If you want respect, then add value to the community in which you live. And don't prey upon the citizen. And inside of that gang or it doesn't even have to, you don't even have to be a member of a gang. But that idea of being disrespected is prominent in your thinking. It's prominent. You are a member of nothing. But the perception of someone disrespecting you can pull the trigger. We need to redefine. We need to publish and redefine what man is and the qualifications of respect. There's I understand there's an inordinate desire within us to be respected because of the lack thereof. And so we carry out the behavior that we think that will garner us respect. There are young men that were raised in well-balanced homes, mothers there, fathers there, everyone. But I bear witness, when you leave home, and you're out in the open public, you have to make an adjustment in order to survive. In order to survive in that environment outside of your home. I know of someone that I know very well. He was raising his son, had him in his little league baseball and all of that. And but he lived in an area where it was gangs, and they forced him to join the gang. They threatened the life of his father and mother. And our peer pressure, he joined the gang. Now, in order to have respect in that gang, you have to divorce yourself from being conscious of other people and how your behavior will affect them. The most brutal matter of fact, we're living in an environment where the strong will suppress the weak. We're in a jungle environment. And in order to get respect, the more inhumane you act, the more uncaring you act, you get respect from those that you're associated with. That you are associated with. We're living in an environment right now. To even speak to another person is a sign of weakness. Now, we didn't construct this system ourselves. Let me say that. We did not construct this system ourselves where the strong oppress the weak. We were birthed into this environment that we're in. And the brutal institution of slavery formed and nurtured us. It made us who we are today. So what I'm saying is that those of us that are conscious, we have to redefine what it means to be a man. We have to redefine what it is to get respect. If you're not producing nothing, you're not manufacturing nothing, you are not in charge of your environment by way of improving on it, you're not a man. That is the role of man. So we can redo it. Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
No, I was just thinking when you were saying the term respect and how it's defined or misinterpreted. And on a more simplistic level, what I hear is to be respected is to be free of violation. No one being able to impede on your space or your well-being or your property and finances, etc. And so anytime that there's an appearance that someone is doing that, right, that is interpreted as disrespect. So if, for instance, you're not from around here, you shouldn't be over here. Why? Because we don't have anything else that gives us value other than this plot of land. I'm talking about those who associate ourselves with that, right? How we interpret that is that if I allow you to speak to me in a way that borderlines on you trying to take something from me or make me to appear weaker than you, then it could be grave consequences as you spoke about earlier. It's so serious and it's so deep that people have lost their life as a result of that. And so the respect, again, it just looks like it's a mental demarcation line. Don't cross this line. And if you cross this line, meaning if you say something to me that I don't approve of, if you get into my space or get into my business or whatever, there's a reaction. There's almost an immediate reaction to that. And so again, I agree with you, brother, man. We have to redefine the term. And also too, something more important that you said is that when you step back and you do an overview of what it is that we have done with our lives as individuals and as a community, if you're not a part of a functioning community, what contributions have you made? What is it for you to be so proud of? What is it that you're protecting? You haven't done anything. And so I think when we can show that the respect that we aspire to have is attached to our accomplishments and our self-worth as human beings and how we treat one another, and then as a result of knowing who we are, what that promotes us to do. You know, God didn't tell us who we are just for us to say, okay, well, I am a thinking human being. I'm a sensitive and emotional human being that is connected with other human beings, and my mission and purpose in life is to be of servitude, to help them out of respect for God. Foundation, going right back to the same issue with the gang culture. A lot of people are practicing practices, but they don't have a foundational information, a foundational structure to understand, okay, why am I doing this? So that's what religion does for us. That's what being does for us as Muslims and God-fearing people, is that it gives us a foundation to know that whatever we do it for the pleasure of God. When we don't violate each other's space, it's out of respect and pleasure for God first. And then as a social being that we want to cohabitate or we want to coexist in harmony and peace. So it trickles down. But if we keep that principle out front, who we are and why we do what we do, that'll keep us, it's a self-checking mechanism. We'll check ourselves. We don't need nobody to tell us when we get out of line, because God already gave us our marching orders. He already gave us our parameters. And when we get outside of it, we have other people that's like-minded, talking about this community life again, that says, hey, brother, you know, that's not what we do. That's Muslims. Now, if you consider yourself... Let me accept... Can I get it upon? Hey, can I get it here? Can I expand upon that term Muslim? Because we don't want to be seen as a kindness group. Muslim only means true human. True human. That you know, so, and we associate ourselves with everyone that is a truly evolved human being. And we should share with each other the values that we all have. One community may have something of benefit and worth that another community may not have. The ability and the willingness to share that. That is how community life spreads, you know. What's up, brother? So, allow me to give this one thing before you move on, because I think the brother had a question also. Yeah. So what I did, yeah, give me 1 second, bro, because I want to be clear on what I was saying in regards to that. So when I say Muslim, I say that no different than we say Christian or Jew, right? And that even though being true human, we have a criteria which we assign to our lives. We pray 5 times a day. Everyone else doesn't practice that. You know, we fast on the month of Ramadan. Everyone doesn't practice that. So I'm not disassociating us from a human family, but we do have an identity as being practicing Muslims, no different than the Christians and the Jews and others. So I'm not saying it in a separatist way. I'm saying that if we identify by this standard, that there are rules and restrictions that govern us in that standard. That was the point that I was making. But I'll yield just to give credit to my statement. Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah. What I wanted to add a couple of things. The brother talked about how the gangs had a code system. They had a tablet, let's say, that governed how they were supposed to act. And that, over time, that was forgotten about. You know, Crip meant something. Now the new ones come in, they don't even know what's going on. What's interesting, I don't know if you know this, brother, when black people moved from down south during the Great Migration, the Blackstone Rangers, they weren't the gang that they became. They
formed. They were actually formed to protect black people from the ethnic white community that were attacking black people. They weren't. We weren't against the Stones. They weren't extorting other businesses as they grew to do when it was only a pure black community. They weren't fighting each other and killing each other over territories. Their original purpose was to protect black people. They weren't a traditional gang because we came, and the same thing was on the west side. I forgot the name of the original name, but the group's become the conservative vice lords, I think. But it wasn't like that at the beginning. So I'm just chiming in on what you said. It's true. Not only did the gangs forget, what their current codes are, but we forgot totally that the gangs were actually excellent, and we succeeded in protecting the community from the ethnic Irish, the ethnic Italian, the ethnic Polish. Now, I want to go back to the question I asked you. You were talking about gangs, but what I was really asking you was the issue of territoriality and fear, and I'm wondering what I think I've noticed. Let me just tell you what I think I've noticed. Okay. We're black folks. We're in a certain society. There's television. We can go downtown. We can see that there's something different in the outer community that with us. Okay. And I just wonder when that is driven into your psyche, just by observation over decades and hundreds of years. That's a territory that you don't have. That's a place that you don't have. I used to tutor engineering students at the university, and none of them had parents who were engineers. Okay, so I had to be a psychologist. I couldn't just tutor. I had to explain to the brothers, you don't have to change your program how you think, but you don't have people that were engineers. But this is what I'm thinking, that a lot of our people, the young people, they feel maybe subconsciously like, hey, I don't have anything. Where's the businesses? Where's this? Don't get in my territory. Don't step on my shoes. And I was just wondering if some of it is part of the territoriality. You don't want anyone stepping in your space because you don't have much. I was on the bus once and saw two guys. They suddenly started fighting, and they kind of separated, and one got near the end, with the back of the bus, and I just jumped up and I pulled the red cord and I pushed him out because I didn't want no stuff. And the other one, he got, and they continued fighting the dress that the bus went on. So I asked someone, I said, what were they fighting about? What happened? And the brother said, well, one of them stared at the other. And I said, it had to be more than that. He said, you know how our people are here. He said, so to me, that sounds like territoriality. We feel shoved. We don't feel as strong as men as we should feel. Because we don't, or like the brother said, the host, we have the perception, of that we don't have. And that can really mess us up. So I was just wondering how you feel about that, being someone who has been in the gang. Would you say that's right?
It's true. It's true. And I'm going to show you how it plays out. It's not just it affects every aspect of who we are, right? I'm going to show you just an example. So, for any brother or sister that has experienced incarceration, you're given a set of ground rules when you go into that life, that world, that environment, right? You don't just go and sit at one's table. To your very point, we all in prison together. We don't have much of anything, but what we do have is our plain space. So you don't just go and sit at anybody's table because that can get you hurt or possibly killed. That's for real. Well, and so you associate yourself with the people that or have your common interests, who you are, that group that you're a part of, that your tribe or your gang or your clique or whatever term you want to use. It is people that have shared interests that you have. So you don't go and sit at nobody else's table. You don't necessarily go into anybody else's part of the yard. Like these are established rules, and if anybody that's there is giving you giving you the ropes in the proper way, they're going to explain to you, don't go there, don't sit here, don't do that, don't interact with these people, et cetera, et cetera. So you're learning the lay of the land early on. Now, if you violate that, then you get what you get. Okay, come out of that environment. So that's just one aspect. High school, middle school. You don't go and sit at anybody's table. In high school. I don't know what it was like back in the day, but in my time, you didn't do that. Because you had neighborhoods that sit in certain parts of the cafeteria. It's the same principle, same concept. That these people that's from the north side, et cetera, that's where you sit.
Shahir.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't you say that prison culture has planted itself in the society in which we live? That territory. Now, these may sound like trivial issues that you are speaking of, but in that prison environment, that is not a trivial matter. You do not just sit at wherever you want to sit. It's sections cordoned off. Now, we are seeing that played out in the open society. Has prison culture supplanted? I mean, has it? So many have been through prison, been through that system. And that type of mentality, that type of thinking, not individuals.
Actually, it's the other way around. And I'm going to show you. It's the opposite of that. So when you think about the movie, a movie came out a little while some years ago. Now it's old. Leonardo DiCaprio, Gangs of New York. If anybody remember that movie, they were all in New York, and you had the African Americans, they had their little section. You had the Italians, you had the Irish, you had the Polish. Everybody had their own little cells. And when those cells were, you cross certain lines in the movie, I'm just using the movie, and that was like in the what? Early 1900s. As late as the 1800s, early 1900s. So it's the opposite. The only reason that it plays out so vividly in prison is because you are in a microcosm. Everything is right on top of each other. So it's very easy to see and detect. But it's the same thing in neighborhoods. Like when you talk about in here in St. Louis, you got Dago Hill. You knew that if you wasn't from that part of town, you didn't go over there. You had the South Side. You had the Caucasians that predominantly had the South Side. You didn't go over there as an African American. And downtown was ran by the affluent. That's money. You didn't go there. And then you had areas that were the projects, the inner city, downtown, and midtown. That's where so it's not prison had an influence on society. Society is just being demonstrated in a microcosm in the prison. This is the same thing that's going on in society. It's compatible, right?
Right. Hey, if I could add that, some to that.
Yes, go ahead, my brother.
Hey, this is Bullhead here again.
Hey, Bullhead.
To piggyback on what he was saying, I worked in a prison for 3 years, so I have a different perspective from that. But also, I grew up in Woodlawn, in Chicago, and my uncle was a Blackstone Ranger. So he told me stories about how they protected the neighborhoods and how my grandmother would feel afraid to go home with her groceries. Actually, young men would pick her groceries up and take them home with her, in the Woodlawn community. And black people felt safe there. But then, powers that be brought forces in to disrupt that safety. And this happens all over the world. I mean, I went to Jerusalem. They do the same thing in Jerusalem they do in Chicago. They got gangs. They have gangs in Israel.
Yeah.
They have them in Rome. They have them in Paris. Every place I've gone to the hood, They got gangs there. And I talked to these brothers, and they have the same story. You know, there was a really, was a brother I talked to, conversed with, and there was a professional football player. He was a wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, and he was wearing this big gold chain, and he was going to take it off because him and his friend were going to a nightclub. And this older gentleman said, "Wait a second, why are you going to take your chain off?" He said, "Well, someone might, try to, take it from me or kill me, for it." He said, "Man, let me tell you something. What's the difference between cows in Chicago and cows in China?" And the guy looked confused. He said, "I don't know." He said, "There is no difference. They eat the same hay and they ship the same bullshit." meaning that wherever I've gone in the world, when somebody's coming up to you, normally if they're genuine or if they're up to something or trying to get something from you. And a lot of people cannot differentiate those things. They can't look at a person's eyes and tell whether they're telling you the truth or not. And that's the dilemma that men in this country, black men in this country, have to deal with. Because a lot of men I know cannot look other men in their eyes. No.
That is a sign of that is interpreted as weakness. Correct. But it's not over here. No, I'm only saying that is how that is interpreted. That is interpreted. Yes. I have a different interpretation of that. That's why men don't look men in the eye. Yes, sir. But go ahead, brother. Go ahead, finish your point. Right. I'll be very succinct. Respect for one another. That's what we're really aiming at. Respect for one another. I'm aware of it was organizations established to protect from outside, people from outside. But what's happening now, people from outside, is they are not the ones coming in, killing us and our children, selling death right out in the public. And in order to be a member of that association, there's a very cold consciousness that you must have. You must not care about what is right and what is wrong. And if you reflect that, you are seen as weak. And that this idea of he disrespecting me, if we truly speak to how to really garner respect. Respect is not just because you can bully someone or you can beat someone up. We have the unique opportunity among us as a people to truly establish civilization and truly what respect is. We have the ability to redefine what it means to be a man and what it means to earn the respect of other men. We have to be maintainers and protectors of our women and the community in which we live. That is how we get respect, not from us disrespecting one another and accepting the paradigm of thinking that the strong is who should is most dominant. That dominance. We're in a very weak position now. So those of us that are having this,
that's because those who are practicing that Aki, they are equating respect to fear, and that's not the same. It's not the same. It is not. So
glad that we're having this conversation concerning reach. If we can pass this information on to just one young man or a host of young men, redefine what respect really means. It may start off small and redefine what it is to be a man. Then I think we can turn around.
If I may be because we were made mention about, you know, having eye-to-eye contact, and when I work with young people and I try to get them, you know, employment ready, you know, job training skills and interview skills, et cetera, you know, the things that I do in a professional capacity. That's one of the biggest issues that we run into dealing with younger people is being able to make eye contact. And when I talk to my young people, and I've learned that there is a synonymous thread, no matter, you know, who they, male, female, background, experiences, they share this same commonality, is that it is an insecurity of self. It's not necessarily a weakness, but what the lack of the eye contact, what that indicates is that you may see something in me that I don't want you to see. It's an insecurity, you know, and that is also too. It's an insecurity, and
that second look, respect, repeat, and take a second look. I'll stop.
Yeah, so you may see something in me that I don't want to reveal to you, and then the other aspect of that is you may see something in me that I don't, that's not honorable. So again, the brother was talking about being able to read situations, body language, eye contact. That's what he's talking about. It's being able to, they call it street savvy. You know, when you see somebody approaching you, and the first thing you should do is look them in the eye, because what is the old adage? It says that the eyes are the windows to the soul. So we have so much going on in us. Even some of us who think that we're healthy, we have hidden traumas. We have stuff that's going on in us. And sometimes when you make eye contact with a person, you can connect with the experience of that person, and that's intimidating. It's frightening in some cases. And so I feel yes, bro. We try to avoid that as men, because I don't want to give the appearance that I'm giving myself over to you.
Right. Okay, I've just been warned that we have 60 seconds. Can I read two sentences? Can I? Hello? Yes. Please go ahead. If it can be very short, I got about 60 seconds left. Yeah, it'll be much less than that. These are two sentences from Judge Joe Brown. I don't know if you are familiar with him, but anyway, Judge Joe Brown on masculinity, he said this: masculinity is the cement that establishes principle, duty, honor, obligation, responsibility, accountability, forthrightness, bravery, and courage. Protecting womanhood and promoting womanhood and promoting man. That should be. I've been warned. I have 10 seconds, my brother. I'm grateful for everyone that tuned in. I have to leave the air for the next upcoming broadcast. It is Halal Industries. It is hosted by our beloved Imam Waleed Abdul Ayub. And then we ask if you would stay tuned for the next upcoming broadcast following that.
Come to the end of our show today, but you can hear every show in the archive at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution. You can also hear today's show on the Female Solution Facebook page. Go to www.facebook.com/the-female-solution. Leave your comments about today's show. You can always reach me on my website at www.naimalatif.com. That's www.naimalatif.com. Watch our TV shows, listen to our radio shows, order our books, and be sure to get your copy of the book, The Female Solution. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussion. And to our global family listening from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, Sheshe, India, Zanyabad, Japan, Arigato, Korea, Kamsahamnida, Russia, Spasiba, Germany, Danke, Poland, Dziękuję, France, Merci, Spain, Gracias, Italy, Grazie, Egypt, Shukran, Ghana, Nadasi, Nigeria, Eshe, South Africa, Gabonga, Senegal, Jeret, Kenya, Asante, Israel, Toda, Pakistan, Shukriya, Afghanistan, Tashakur, Saudi Arabia, Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.